Hi, Lori Kloehn here to talk to you today about how to read Shakespeare. This is an approach. Maybe you've been assigned one of the plays for school. Maybe you've decided bravely to take this on yourself. Let's talk a little bit about how to approach reading one of these complicated texts. Here's what we're going to do today. First of all, I want us to consider what is Shakespeare's English? Why don't I understand it? And what methods can I use to make it easier? I'm here to help you read Shakespeare and walk you through some of the more mystifying aspects. First of all, what is Shakespeare's English? I often hear students say, well, it's just this Old English. It is definitely not Old English. Here is a medievalist from MIT reading the first lines of Beowulf in Old English.
What, we Gardena, in yer dagun, theod kuninga, thrum jefrunon, hutha adelingas, ellen fremedon, oft schild cheving, shaden a thratum, monogam martham, mer a settler oft ter.
Okay, I'm not understanding that. Are you understanding that? That's Old English. It's also not Middle English. Here is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, read by the same MIT professor, in Middle English.
Sithen the sage and the assault was saced at Troy, the Borg Britned and Brent to Brondus and Oscus, the tulk that the Tromus of Trazen there wrought was treated for his treachery.
Okay, that might be a little bit closer to modern English, but I'm still not getting what's going on. Shakespeare's English is modern English. It's why you can almost understand it. It's why when you see it acted, you say, oh, now I understand that. In a way, it's almost as if you have to get yourself in a certain place to understand it. And you spend probably the first 5 minutes of watching any performance kind of in a mystified state. But then you'll discover, oh, I think I'm getting this. And it happens to almost everyone. So why can't you understand it? Well, there are really 3 reasons. Shakespeare manipulated the words for rhythm and poetry. Words have changed meaning over time, and we no longer use some of the words that Shakespeare used. Shakespeare manipulated his words to fit iambic pentameter and to be what he regarded as more poetic. You know, Shakespeare thought of himself as a poet more than a playwright. Here's a line from Hamlet. Neither a borrower nor a lender be, for loan oft loses both itself and friend, and borrowing dulls the edge of husbandry. So Polonius says these lines to his son Laertes, and he is giving him advice, and Polonius is a bit of a blowhard. And so Shakespeare tries to make him sound a little bit sophisticated, but almost as if he is trying to be overly sophisticated. And you can see right here that he says, neither a borrower nor a lender be. He does not say, don't be a borrower nor a lender. He doesn't put it in what normally we would consider to be standard English order of words in sentences. And there's a couple reasons why he does this, but the main reason is to follow the beat, to be in iambic pentameter, to have the rhythm go da-dun, 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 da-dun. And in this case, it does also sound a little bit like Yoda. Brave Jedi Knight, you be. Sometimes that's why we have a hard time understanding. Another problem we have when trying to understand Shakespeare is that words have changed meaning over time. I'm sure that you can think of many words that have changed meaning just in your lifetime alone. In Shakespeare's case, we have many, many years to contend with, right? 1590, 1600 until now is quite a bit of time. And words will go through changes in meaning. When Romeo says, soft what light through yonder window breaks, it is the east and Juliet is the sun, he is not saying that somehow the light is soft and gentle or speaking about the way it feels. He uses the word soft to mean weight. which is one of the meanings that word had in Shakespeare's time. In addition to the problems of word order and the problems of words with multiple meanings, Shakespeare uses words that we no longer use at all. Here's an example from the Duke of Illyria in Twelfth Night. Oh, when mine eyes did see Olivia first, methought she purged the air of pestilence. That instant was I turned into a hart, and my desires like fell and cruel hounds ere since pursue me. Methought is not a word we use. We understand what it means, but it has definitely fallen out of usage. We also have air, another typical Shakespearean usage that's going to make it a little bit more challenging. Here is an example that brings together all of the different aspects that we might find concerning within Shakespeare. It is a passage from Macbeth, and Macbeth himself speaks these words to Lady Macbeth. Be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck, till thou applaud the deed. Come, sealing night, scarf up the tender eye of pitiful day, and with thy bloody and invisible hand cancel and tear to pieces that great bond which keeps me pale. There's so much going on here. Interestingly, dearest Chuck means chicken. So he's calling her his dearest chicken, which is a very fond term of endearment for Macbeth to be using with his wife. He also uses thou, which is the familiar. We think of thou as being very formal, but in Elizabethan times, thou was actually more personal, which is fascinating, right? When he talks about the sealing night, he is talking about the night that actually blinds the eyes, and it's sewing together the eyelids, which is what they did of a falcon, so that falcons were temporarily in darkness. Sometimes they put blindfolds on them, but sometimes they actually sewed their eyelids together. And he is saying, I want the darkness of night, which is going to cover actions, to arrive so that the inevitable plan that I have put into motion is all going to come true. He says, scarf up, which is also kind of fascinating, right? It means blindfold. But we might think, what does that mean? Is he talking about vomiting? Like, you have to actually sort of think about what he is trying to do here, which is show us this covering, the way that night covers the deeds. There's some great personification here. The night with its bloody and invisible hand. He's speaking about canceling and tearing to pieces that great bond, which is fascinating because the bond could be a contract, or it could be natural law, or it could be talking about Banquo himself, who he is trying to off. And you could see that Shakespeare's doing all the things right here in just these lines. Now that you know the extent of the problem, how do you solve it? Here's one approach: read it aloud. Reading these words out loud is actually participating in the way Shakespeare intended them to be. He did not intend to have them read in a book. He intended to have them read aloud by actors. When you read it aloud, you'll hear things that you might have missed the first time. Second hint: look at the comments and notes in your book. If you have the Folger, if you have the Arden, you are going to find so many notes that are going to be so helpful to you in the course of your reading. Examine those comments and notes. You might read it through once and then go back and look at the notes and then read it again. 3, look up words you don't know. If they're not in the notes, look them up. Use a dictionary. Figure it out. 4, listen to an audio recording. There are so many great recordings of the plays, and listening to actors read the lines can be so helpful because suddenly you understand, oh, that's what he means, or oh, she's delighted here, or furious, which is a thing you might not have caught from the words themselves. Watching a production is another great way to truly experience the way Shakespeare would have wanted you to. At one of his plays, you had people from all walks of life, And not everyone would have understood every word or every nuance. But when you're watching a production, you suddenly have the actor in front of you conveying that meaning to you, making it so much easier. Number 6, talk it over with someone. I don't advise going to certain websites that are going to give you a side-by-side translation, which might not be accurate and is not helping you figure out your interpretation. That's what this is all about. How do you receive the plays? How do you understand them? If you're always relying on someone else to translate it for you, you're not actually experiencing the beauty of Shakespeare's words. You're experiencing somebody who just thought, this is my job to put it into readable or more current English. I think that you can handle the original Shakespeare. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. You might make some mistakes. That's okay. This is not particularly easy, but it's really fun because it's Shakespeare and it's the beauty of this language. That's the heart of Shakespeare. I know you can do it. I know you can enjoy these moments of digging in when it might seem a little bit challenging. I want you to try to mark up your book, consider carefully what you're reading, try to bring some understanding out of it, but also don't be afraid to make some mistakes. It's okay. Remember these strategies. Read it aloud. Examine comments and notes. Look up words you don't know. Listen to an audio recording. Watch a production. Talk it over with someone. And of course, the last strategy, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Have some fun.